probably click
Here
on
we
it.
go. First, we turn to Robert Collier, died in 1950. Really gained a lot of popularity with this book. You might be familiar with it, The Secret of the Ages, which was like a
Secret.
Yeah, it was like The Secret, really. It was like a motivational, positive thinking book. And that book sold more than 300,000 copies during his life, which is a lot, an awful lot. And he sold a lot of other. He sold millions of dollars worth of books, other people's books, like George Orwell's 4-volume Outline of History, and he did it through direct mail letters using his copywriting. And so toward the end of his career, he wrote a book which is a staple in our library called the Robert Collier Letter Book, where he actually shares his most successful and effective direct mail letters and explains what made them successful. And so,
If you ever want a sample of his letters, just let your credit card lapse in our payment system, and you'll get a series of letters from us that are written off of...
You're suggesting this?
No, I'm not suggesting it. It's somewhat joke, but you will see a series of letters
that were inspired by
that
him.
were inspired by Robert Collier.
Yeah.
And from this book. It's a very tedious book to read, but has a lot of examples of his work and solid strategies. But this key strategy that we're talking about here is decide the effect you want to produce in your reader.
You know, that's almost seems obvious. I'd say perhaps all of these seem obvious.
Yeah.
It almost seems obvious, but I can't tell you the number of times I see this missed. Like almost always. We say there's another. It's not our quote. I can't even. I don't even know who to attribute it to. Maybe you'll know. Begin with the end in mind.
It's been bastardized so many times.
Who knows, right? Begin with the end in mind. That's essentially the idea here. Before you sit, in fact, let's see if I've got a quote. He's got a nice quote. Yeah. Before you put pen to paper, before you ring for your stenographer, decide in your own mind what effect you want to produce on your reader, what feeling you must arouse in him.
I'm ringing up my stenographer with my... Spock, get your pencil out. Kirk out. See, even Ryan Seacrest stole Kirk's line. Kirk out. Seacrest out. See? Ideas from the past.
You done?
Past. It's American Idol. It's way past. Seacrest.
Yeah, but people don't even know. That should be on the history.
Should
be on the history slides.
Who? Seacrest? Who?
Yeah. Right. He'll imagine when he's dead, and he'll put a picture up. Best known for. But anyway, beginning and saying, well, what is the effect? And then, next step, how am I going to go about creating that effect? We have a handout, but I'll give it to you at the end. And it's got a list of different types of emotions we might seek to evoke from our readers, and then words or phrases that go along with those. It's kind of a resource that you can turn to when you are writing an email, preparing a presentation, writing a letter, and you say, which emotion am I going after? What emotions do you think that we are trying to evoke in the people we are targeting with automotive advertising? Any ideas? Yeah, shout them out.
Sense of urgency.
Okay, urgency. What else?
Realization.
Realization of?
That they can get a car.
Realization that they can get a car.
So belief.
What about customer loyalty?
Loyalty. Let's even go a step down. Think of base instincts. Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Something for nothing.
So the hierarchy of needs starts with survival, moves to safety, then goes to belonging, then goes to ego, and then self-actualization. Does a car help self-actualize? I don't really think so. Maybe. Does a car help survive? Sure. Does a car help keep you safe? Does a car affect one's belonging? Ooh, now it's really getting heavy. Does a car affect one's ego?
Yeah. I think it also helps self-actualization. It's really an interesting thing. I think this is why the car business is, what we say has a miracle. There's a miracle of the car business.
Uh-huh.
It's because when you look at Maslow's true hierarchy of needs, something with an automobile can fit on nearly every level of it, which is why ultimately everybody wants a nicer, newer car.
That's right. So I mean, on the screen here we see envy. Can we create the sense? Can we evoke the sense of envy through our advertising of vehicles? I think so. Certainly, you would want that sense of envy is to desire to want, right? Flattery. Could a person be flattered with the car? Could a person feel proud? Would they feel the emotion of pride because of their vehicle? What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is, Collier says, before you put a pen to paper, you have to think about, and in your own mind, decide what effect you want to create on the person who's going to receive this message. Now, let's apply this old idea to modern day tactics. Take one, for instance, social media, right? Or specifically Facebook. So to use, say, Facebook really doesn't work that well in social, as a sales tool. Well, I think it would work better if every time before you put pen to paper or mouse to screen, keyboard to screen, hand to keyboard, however it would work in this case, you thought about what emotion am I trying to create with this Facebook post?
Sure.
Now the problem is you're going to be posting a lot on Facebook, and so that's a lot of work.
Well, and think about this. Most people who are marketing anyway in the car business, which is all of us, I think begin with what they want out of it. They begin by, I mean, frankly, most of the noise in the car business, in and around marketing in the car business, has to do with a display of vehicles and prices, payments, features, right? How does that evoke emotion?
Well, I've even heard local commercials, like in the commercial, like one of the first things, we want to sell you a car.
What emotion might that evoke?
Who cares?
Yeah. Who cares? Fear, anxiety, uncomfort, discomfort. I don't.
I mean, the idea here isn't to, before you put your pen to paper, decide what you want for yourself and put it in the ad. You got to think, the idea here is to put the desire you want to create in the receiver of the message.
That's right. What emotional state do I want them to be in?
Too often advertisers put what they want into the ad.
And so this step, this is the first principle we share because it's the most base, the most fundamental, and it's the one that's skipped almost always. I mean, just
Because
for
it's
fun.
work.
Yeah, it is work.
It's hard.
Yeah, just for fun, look around at advertising and ask yourself, at any advertising, not just automotive, and ask yourself what emotion is being evoked. And if there is an emotion being evoked, is it being done intentionally or accidentally?
We always try to figure out what we want to put in the subject box in our email blast that's
Yeah.
going to make them open it up.
Right?
What would Robert Collier say to that? And what would he say as some good examples?
Well, he might begin by saying, what emotion do you want to create or do you want to stir in a person with your email? And how do we begin with that? Of course, also, to digress from this particular topic, what's the job of the subject line? This is really a Gary Halbert topic, which we'll get to later. But the job of the subject line is to
Open up.
get the email open, right?
So which is a different job.
Well, but there might be one emotion, which is curiosity. Could we create curiosity from the subject line?
That's what you need, curiosity, to get the open.
Hmm.
And so in this important point here, which is when we're writing an email. And so we're going to use this principle. So when we write that subject line, we have to think about creating a different emotion than we're going to create in the body of the email. And depending on the message we're going to put in the body email, the reason for the email, not every time are we going to use the same emotional driver, depending on what we're trying to accomplish with the email. So it's not as simple as we pick one or two desires that we create because we're in the car business, and then we use those over and over. Each message, each Facebook post, each tweet may have a different reason, and therefore a different emotion tied to it. So, this is why it's very important when you're going to create advertising that you just don't do it haphazardly. And if you're going to be on social media for something more than pleasure or productivity, you have to think about each message you throw out there has to have some kind of rationale, some kind of specificity. You have to think about the emotion you're trying to create with it, which is why it is not easy and it doesn't just work.